A warm welcome to another Magpie Circle Podcast, and it's a first for us because with today's former Notts County player, he's actually a current serving international manager. So a bit of a first. Ian Baraclough, a very warm welcome. Good to see you.
Morning, Paul. You all right?
Yeah, hey, we're all good. Looking forward to this one. We've not had too many former players go on to be international managers, although actually you're not the first former Notts player to become manager of Northern Ireland. Nigel Worthington beat you to it, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Before you.
A few years ago, yeah.
So we're going to delve into your Notts County past. Two spells, both over 100 appearances. I know you're mates with Kevin Nicholson, and Kevin quite rightly slaughtered our stats man, i.e. my lad, for getting all his stats wrong. I think the most important thing is to say that you made 701 appearances in your career, which is some going, by the way. That's some going.
Yeah, I think when I first started out as a kid at Leicester, I never imagined playing that many games at all. Just to make a handful would have been a great achievement, I think, for me at that time. I certainly wasn't the most talented youngsters or kids when I went to Leicester. I wasn't one of the cream of that group, I suppose. And I was only offered my apprenticeship with a choice of, do I want to stay on at college? Because my dad was in the room, came into the I remember with Dave Richardson, the youth team coach, and he said to me, look, I know your dad's keen on you finishing your education. We've got a couple of lads that are at Leicester and they come in during the school holidays, and we'll give you that option. You're a borderline case, and it's your decision. And I went outside the room, spoke to my dad, and I said, look, if I'm going to fail, I said I'd like to know that I've failed having given it a good crack, and I don't think going in on school holidays is giving it a good crack, and I'm pleased I stood up for myself, and I'm pleased that I made that decision. I never would have imagined that I'd have made that many appearances and then certainly not gone on to be a coach and manager.
701 appearances, 248 of them, two spells at Notts. I think it is a first, and we're going to delve into this story a little bit later on. There are not many Notts County players that turned down a move to Tottenham Hotspur, which is quite an interesting story involving David Pleat. We'll come on to that in a bit. And I guess where you are now, it's a bit of a little Notts County enclave in Belfast, isn't it? With yourself, Tommy, and Patrick Nelson, who of course used to be chief executive at Notts. Do you reminisce much about the old days at Notts or not?
We have spoken. I mean, we were all there at different times, so I was never there with Tommy, and I just missed out on Patrick being there as well. But no, we speak about different times of what it was like when we were there, and how the club's changed, how it's had its highs and lows, and there doesn't seem to be any time during Notts period where it's quiet and just on a level. You know, certainly my 6 years, I can say that every year there was something crazy happened, whether it be promotion, relegation, administration, and it's I look back at it fondly, but say there was never a dull moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a very good point about promotion, relegation, administration. Looking through your 6 seasons, there was never one of those middle of the road seasons with nothing to play for in January, was there?
No.
I've put together a quick selection of the shirts here that sort of encompass. As I think you eagerly went out to the one on my finger. He says so. Championship shirt. Now you've still got that one, haven't you?
I have. I've got it framed. I've got it with the medal, which I eventually got, and I'm sure you'll mention that.
Yeah.
I've got it with the team photo, and it was up on my study wall at one time for a good while. So it's since moving house, it's in a top bedroom at the moment. But no, it's so things like that don't happen too often. Not everybody can turn around and say they've had a promotion on the CV, and not everyone of those can turn around and say they've won a league title. So no, a cherished moment.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, because I've got some of these shirts. I mean, I'm not the thinnest, as you know, enthusiastic.
I'm not going to comment.
Talented, Bara. I'm a live figure like you. But they're like tents, aren't they, in that era? Can you remember? Mark Stallard was there. They're huge.
Well, I went to QPR, and one of my debut shirt there I can remember, and it was, I think they got it mixed up with Razor Ruddocks. It was one of them that I look back now, and I actually gave one to, because I had several shirts from the time, and I gave one to my nephew, and he put it on, and it was like a big kaftan thing. It was drowned in it. He says, "How did you wear these?" I said, "No, well, I'm glad it wasn't skin tight at the time, because I was, like you say, I was skinny, scrawny." But no, that loose fitting was a good way to describe it.
Yeah, Mark Stallard tells us a few stories about those shirts. Okay, let's delve into, you arrived at Leicester City, October '85. And when you looked at that group of players, this was this shirt. It's a match one. I think that was Sean Murphy's, I think. When you arrived, it was a good group of players, wasn't it? You know, I jotted a few down for you. You know, Steve Finnan would have been there when you were there. Sean Derry, a young 16-year-old. Gary Mills, Darren Ward, Paul Devlin. I mean, that was a good group of players when you arrived. I mean, what led up to you arrived? Who signed you? What was it about?
Finns and Desert came later on, a little bit later on, but certainly when I came from Mansfield, so I'd been released from Lincoln. I remember having left Leicester, I went on loan to Wigan. I then went on loan to Grimsby, joined Grimsby, but only made 4 appearances for them as they were going through the leagues, got into the Championship, what is now. And then I went from Grimsby to Lincoln. Lincoln had 2 years there and really started to play games regularly for the 2 years. Then got released by Keith Alexander, actually. God rest his soul. And you know, he was making a change in the way he was going to go and play, and because it certainly couldn't have been for wages, because I think I was paying them. But it was one where Andy King took me to Mansfield, and he wanted to play me at left back, and whereas I'd been playing midfield, and I thrived under him. He was fantastic. Again, someone who's no longer with us, but someone who just loved the game. And you talk about man managers. He exactly knew what people wanted at the time, and you know, he's sorely missed even now by the players who you know worked under him and with him. It's but then I moved after a year and a half in the October to Notts, and they paid a fee for me, and I was joining a club that was, I thought, very much on the up. Could have been in the Championship that season, because we, you know, I looked at the league table. I think we were 4th or 5th. Steve Thompson and Colin Murphy were in charge.
Yeah.
And you look at the players, like you say, you've already said about Dev. Andy Legg was there. Wardy had already joined from Mansfield in the summer, so I knew him, obviously. And just it was a decent squad of players at that time, and you know, Chrissy Wilder was on playing right back, and I was going to play left back.
Yeah, there was some good players. Now, Derek must have liked you to have paid a fee for you to Mansfield, because he'd normally been trying to get you for note out of there, wouldn't he?
Oh, he got it back. Don't worry, in some form or other. Yeah, but again, it was charismatic. It was someone, you knew what you were coming into in that respect. But we you know, there was a good group of players, and you thought, you know, there's a real chance if we don't get permanent promotion, then we could go through the playoffs, which we obviously eventually did. Get to Wembley, and just such a disappointing day to lose out to Bradford. I remember it was you know, a low point in my career, because you expect to go to Wembley, enjoy the day, and I didn't really.
What was Murph, or you know, in the game we call him Smurf, don't we? I mean, what a character he was! What a character!
Well, one of his first conversations with me, he says, you know, he could go off on a tangent, and suddenly one day he said to me, he went, "Bara," he says, "you like cricket, don't you?" I went, "Yeah, I like cricket. Yeah." He said, "If you had £1 million," he says, "would you pay it for an opening bowler or an opening batsman?" And I'm looking around thinking, what? He's testing me here. What's the I went, well, to win a test match, you've got to take 20 wickets. So an opening bowler, he went, good boy, and then walked off. And that was it. And I was like, right, did I pass that test or not? He just could talk about anything, and was convincing when talking about it. But someone who you did listen to, and he was, people thought he was a bit crazy, a bit wacky, but some of the brilliant people are, aren't they? And I've met him since. Unfortunately, I think he's had one or two problems. I met him at Lincoln, actually, at the ground there, and it's a shame to see people sort of not how they were and how you remember them. But it's I was fortunate to have worked under him and learnt from him in that respect. I mean, I don't use one of his warm-ups where he used to take a cricket bat and a cricket ball, and we'd all be around in the field, and it was the warm-up. He'd smack this cricket ball, and he'd go, Baraclough, fetch that, and you'd go and run it and throw it into him. And I'm like, okay, right, this is new.
It's weird because the Test cricket team in England for years play football, don't they? And there's been a big debate about it because they've suffered so many warm-up injuries, haven't they, when someone's tackled someone? And here's Smurf going the opposite way with you guys. He didn't crack you on the head with a cover drive, did he? I've
been in changing rooms where we've actually had our own strip, if you like, and you take it in turns in going into bat and bowling. You've got 15 fielders around the bat, and or you have in the gym somewhere, and you go and play a bit of cricket before we go out and train. So it's there's method in the madness.
So that group of players, a strong group of players, as you mentioned there. So what was it like going into that dressing room? You would have been early 20s at that point?
Yeah. Well, the likes of Tony Agana was up front, so there was some senior players there. Murph, as you already mentioned, at the back. Hoggy, big Hoggy.
Graham Hogg.
Remember Graham Hogg? But you could some stories about. I mean, when he comes in and he's, I think he's going a bit thin on top. I might try it myself actually, because he'd met somebody along the way, some woman that had told him to rub potatoes on the back of his head and it'll really thicken it up. So he'd do that in the morning before, after training or whatever. Or just silly things like that. He'd come in and giggle away, and just learning from people like that, listening to the stories. I didn't go in and I'm not someone who bursts through the door as if to say I'm here. It was just great to be around those sort of people, and Gary Mills was there. I knew him from Leicester as well. And you just listen and try to take things in and try and do as well as you can and fit in as part of the group. And once you get your chance in the team, make sure you take it. And I managed to stay there.
What about Leggy's long throw? I mean, it was unbelievable at that time, wasn't it?
Well, I was playing left back. He was in front of me. I'd be in my own half, and I'd have the hand, ball in the hand, and Tomo and Murph would say, "Leave it to Leggy." And I'm like, "All right, okay, well, fair enough." Well, he'll throw it into the box, and that was from our own half. He was, it was a real weapon for us, especially when we had, big Devon White as well. Came in and that was the way that we wanted to play. Get the ball in the channels, get it up to the front men, and go and play from there. And it worked for that period. But we come up against a Bradford team that were just too good on the day, and they had I remember walking out. Their end of Wembley was full, chock-a-block, 45,000 Bradford fans, and I think we probably took about 13,000, 14,000. But for us, it was almost like becoming a second home, wasn't it? Because of the cup finals and the playoff finals, Anglo-Italian. So maybe it wasn't new to them, but the Bradford fans enjoyed themselves that day.
Had you played at Wembley before that game?
No, first time. So it was massive for me and the family, and I remember there was a bus go from the local pub, and having to walk into the pub later on that night wasn't enjoyable either. It was upsetting. I felt as though it was our time, and everything felt right to go and win the game. But you had to go and beat a very good Bradford team, and they got the better of us.
In many respects, in terms of the last 25 years history of the club, it was quite a pivotal moment, because I think had we beaten Bradford and gone up, then I think Derek would have found a bit of cash, as is his one. And I think with those group of players, would have competed at championship level. But it kind of really sparked the end for Murph, didn't it? And Tom Owen, you always thought, hang on, you're going to have to start well next year and that sort of thing.
I think so, yeah. And for us coming back as a group of players, there was a certain amount, 6, 7 players, I think, that were in the bomb squad. They were training on their own. There was a big squad of players. So we were probably carrying too many players than we should have done. So coming back for pre-season that following year, you're on a bit of a downer. You feel as though the fixtures have come out for the following season, what could have been in the Championship, but you're there in League One, and what was it called, the third division then? And
it kept changing it around that. I go top tier first. I know it's so difficult to recall.
Was it the Ensley League that time, something like that? But it was a strange feeling, and coming back, and there wasn't the same sort of feeling from the off, and we knew it was going to be a tough season when we didn't get off to a great start. You were against the 8 ball really, and we never really recovered, and that's obviously when we got relegated, and we couldn't stop the slump, if you like, with Sam coming in.
Yeah, and like you said at the start of the interview, first season there, you're at Wembley, 50-50 call, toss of a coin. Second season, you're relegated. Big Sam. At what point did you think, this guy really knows his onions, knows his stuff? Because when he came in, it didn't really change much, did it? The slide just was kind of, the rot had settled in, hadn't it?
Yeah, I think it had, and it would have been tough for any manager coming in. We knew Sam from Blackpool. He'd managed Blackpool previously, and had got sacked by a chairman again that was
Owen Oyston.
Owen Oyston. Carl Oyston's the son, and he'd put together a real strong Blackpool team that we knew. You'd been in a game when you played against them, and we're probably pleased that Bradford beat them in the playoff semi-final actually, and it was probably a shock for him to get the sack, and so to have that manager come in for us, we thought, okay, well, this will be good, and we probably felt as though there was a chance of getting out of it actually, because instantly he came in. You remember him being, look, I've not come here to fail. I've come here to try and, first of all, stay up, and then we build for promotion the following season. But we knew from the offset that he wanted to bring in training methods that hadn't been seen before, stuff that he picked up from his time in America, and sports science was going to be at the forefront of it. Hard work was definitely going to be demanded, and an organisation was something that was big, and that's something he's carried through his management career still now. So it's to be at the very start of that, I think for me was an eye opener, and again somebody that has been very beneficial to my career.
Did you, not knowing where you would end up at the time, but did you learn a lot from Sam in terms of coaching, the physical side of the fitness side, man management? I think a lot of people would say one of Sam's big strengths is his ability to manage.
Yeah, I think so. I was probably on the wrong end of his man management, to be honest. I didn't quite like his style when I had to go one-on-one in the office with him. It'd be after training. He'd have his training kit still on. He'd have his socks on. He'd put his feet up on the desk, so you'd be looking at his feet rather than his face at times. And he'd be sat back. He'd have his hand behind his head, and it'd be. You could smell it. It had a smoke as well, and you just come away, and I thought surely there's better ways of dealing with a player across the table than that. But you know, there was times where there was, you know, some heated discussion between us, and I'm probably, you know, you'll remind me of some of those that you know, the reasons for that. But you know, certainly as a player playing for him, you knew what your job was, and if you didn't do it, he'll bring somebody else in that would do it. So you know, he wanted, you know, my role as a midfielder at that time was to be at the base of the midfield. If it's generally on, you know, on the right hand side, there was myself and Phil Robinson, who we spent a lot of time in the midfield with, and you know, one of us would take it in turns, the other one would have to hold, and if the ball got cleared after the ball got in the box, then we had to be there to pick up the second balls, and then give it to the players that could play, if you like, and give it to the wide men who could recycle it and put it back in the box, and that was your job. And if we lost the ball, we got men behind the ball as quickly as possible, and we had to try and win it back. So, you know, if you didn't do that role, if you weren't fit enough to play in the midfield, if you weren't diligent enough to do your job that was given, then you were either brought off, left out, and so you knew where you stood. But for me, you know, working in the gym, working with the physio, Roger Cleary, at the time, because I also had a hernia operation, double hernia, so to work back from that, that had been giving me jip the previous season where we got relegated. You know, it was decided to go in and have the operation, get them both done, so that, you know, they're both as equal as each other. Otherwise, the other one would have gone. And it was, you know, something that we built steadily throughout the pre-season, which was tough. We went back early, so we knew we meant business. You know, our summer holidays were cut short. He brought in the creatine.
Mark Stallard said he couldn't afford it because Derek insisted you pay for it yourself, didn't he?
Well, we were given the first batch, and I think that was probably a sweetener. And if we wanted to stay in the team, then we were expected to carry on using it, and we had to buy it ourselves. But the problem was, you know, there was no sort of definitive reports on it. There was a lot of stuff coming out saying it was bad for you, and in later life it could affect your kidneys and whatever. And like you're thinking, should we be taking this or not? Is it allowed? And then it was explained, well, yes, creatine's, you know, produced by the body naturally, so it's just, you know, topping up those levels, and that your body will secrete the rest that's you know, remaining and not needed. But you know, there was powdered form which you have to take in like a 5-day loading period, and you know, the problems that came from that. Sometimes it could give you a dicky stomach. Apologies for anybody who's listening to this while they're eating the breakfast, but you know, there was a couple of times you'd have to come off the pitch, you know, and you just needed to go, or there was a serum type as well. It was like a pink serum, and you know, it did the same thing. So it was strange. But this is sort of stuff that had come from America. People, you know, they were using it in America and trying to get the edge, and whether it was a placebo effect or whether it actually worked, I don't know. But I felt stronger, I felt bigger, I felt more powerful. I think you could recover quicker from injuries, and you know, I don't think I felt too much better as a player at the time than I did then. But I think winning games, being successful, also makes you feel that way as well.
Were footballers almost used as medical guinea pigs at that time? I mean, did you used it basically because the gaffer said you will have it, you know?
Yeah, you could say it that way, yeah. But we feared for not being in the team. I think if someone was taking it and was feeling good, and someone refused to take it, and you didn't want to be a part of that, then you were made to feel as though a bit of an outcast, or not buying into the team ethos. And you know, I don't remember too many people not using it. Whether they actually used it, I would say, because you had to come off it as well. So you loaded, and then you maintained for a period, and then you had to come off it to give your body a bit of a rest. And that was something that you know, whether people then went back on it, I don't know. But we all bought into it to start with, and I continued for that season with it. But you know, because there was no there was papers being written that it could potentially be bad for you. I think it sort of it went out of the way in that current form. But I don't know whether, I'm not sure whether it's being used in other forms now. I certainly don't push my players to do it, but there are other things, aren't there, on the shelf? So it's that was probably its wave, and it had its period.
There was a big story in the national press at the time. I remember it because I was at Leicester, and Arsene Wenger was a big advocate, and the Arsenal players used it. And it might have been a year before Sam had it, but there was a big debate in terms of how close that needle had been nudged. Yeah, and it was proven to be legal, but it was kind of like just nudging that needle a little bit,
But look, anyone in sport. And I'm not advocating, people using drugs by any means. That's not what I'm on about. It's performance enhancing, but it was something that the body produces, and at that time, yes, it was proved legal. So, we wanted the edge, and we had a team that was firing on all cylinders that year, going into that second year, and we blew the league away. And whether it was that was a part of it, then so be it. But I also think we had a real good group of players. We all knew our jobs, and we had goal scorers in the team, which always helps, and we were solid. So, it had all the ingredients really of a successful season.
You spoke about everybody knowing their roles. A word when we've had Howard Wilkinson as a previous guest on the shows, other managers, Martin Allen as well. Clarity is a word that's used a lot for players to understand their jobs. It's not always the most complex of tactics or systems, but kind of you are given a job and you're kind of on tram lines, and that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it's a massive part of a manager's job and a coach's job. Make sure the players understand what you want from them, individually and collectively. And it's something now that I'll always ask the players, whether it's in team meetings, whether it's out on the training pitch, whether it's before the game. Are you happy with what you're doing? You know your role. Anyone's not sure of the role, come and speak to me. Come and speak to the coaching staff. Just making sure players don't go out there and have no excuse really when they come back in and say, "Well, I was confused. Didn't know what you wanted from me." Everybody knows what's expected of them. Everybody knows their role within the group. And I also expect players to know other people's roles as well, and where they sit within the group. Even if you're on the bench, do you know what's required if you need to go on? What's your role as a substitute? Actually, support the players that are going out there to start, and then come on and have an impact. Players may need to fill in, and do need to fill in. Not may need to. You will have to fill in for somebody at some stage. Do you know his role and what's expected there? So I think the knowledge of the player is massive, and their understanding of their role and others around them is key.
Sam also came from a mantra of kind of all for one and one for all, wasn't he? Be it training, nights out, you all had to be there, didn't you? They weren't optional,
Yeah, and whether some lads were single lads, some were married, some had kids, families. Everyone was expected to be there, and he was great with managing to. I don't know how he did it, but he got some money from Derek and managed to take us away on a few occasions, and they were all always good get-togethers. Yes, you trained and you trained damn hard, but it there was always a night out or two. He encouraged that, but he you knew that you're going to work afterwards, but it was all part of bonding a group together. And I don't think things like that, you don't hear about that too much now, but it goes on. Don't worry about that. You find other ways of doing it, and social media back in them days would have had a field day, I'm sure, but fortunately that wasn't prevalent then, and we were able to have some good nights.
Won't go too much into those. Could you have ever envisaged you're in midfield, there's Big Sam, fourth tier of English football as it then was, whatever the division was called. Could you have ever envisaged that Sam would go on to be England national manager and you go on to be Also an international manager.
I don't know. I don't think anyone can quite believe I've gone on to be a manager, let alone international manager. No, I always thought that Sam would go on to bigger and better, where it would take him, and he's had a stellar career, hasn't he? I was gutted when he only had the one game for England, and the press did their usual catchy job on somebody, and it's sad when you see the media going for somebody like that, and take great delight out of it. Really, I think it's something that he could turn around and say he has reached the pinnacle of his career, and he has managed his country. And for me, I couldn't imagine managing at whatever level at that time when I was playing under Sam, but to certainly be manager of a country and a great nation as Northern Ireland, it's truly the biggest job of my career, and I'm loving it. But Sam was someone who I think had the stature. He stood in the dressing room, people listened. You've got many different types of managers. He was one who could bellow with his voice, and he had the shoulders to match.
So on the pitch, everything is going really well. You've got your place. You're taking the creatine. There's a few nights out, knocking teams over. Job is a good one. But there was kind of this undercurrent with yourself. I believe it was with your contract running out. Just talk us through what happened, because it was quite bizarre in the way that ultimately you ended up leaving. You had to, you weren't given your medal. I think the last game was at Chester, and you were to-ing and fro-ing. What was going on there?
Yeah, unfortunate that it came to that. But it was the first year of the out of contract Bosman.
That's right.
John Mark Bosman had gone to the European courts and freedom of contract, and it was that first year of that. So we were going into the unknown. Nobody knew how it would play out in football, and those that were coming out of contract, again, we're going to be guinea pigs. There's a theme here, isn't there? I've been used as a guinea pig. But I just felt as though I wasn't valued as other people were given their contracts. I felt as though I perhaps deserved a bit more. I was coming to the age of 28. I felt as though I was a senior pro, or one of the senior pros, and had been at the club for 3 years, given good service, and always tried to play when I was injured or carrying my hernia injury. Carried on playing and managing that, and never felt as though I gave the club any problem. So I just felt as though I deserved a better contract to the one I was being offered, and that was some of the the conversations I was having with Sam going into the office. I would say no, I'm not happy with that. No, and then at this stage, I'd use an agent for the first time in my career, and he said that I'd got 1 or 2 clubs that were interested. And would you like to, explore that, the possibility of going somewhere? And I had a phone call from the agent that Sam was using at the time. I can't remember his name, but he rang me, told me that there was a club interested in me, and that I would only leave the club if I used him as an agent. I said, well, I don't need you as an agent. I said, I've got somebody. So, and if that club that you're telling me is interested in me, then they'll come and get me anyway, regardless of the agent. And he swiftly told me that that's not how the game works, and you'll find that out in time to come. So there you go. So that was that one encounter there, and then I went and spoke to QPR, and Queen's Park Rangers obviously were in the not long come down from the Premier League. They were in the Championship. They'd had a couple of years of the parachute payments, and we're offering a really good contract to go down there on a 3.5-year deal, 3-year deal at the end of the season. And I'd had fantastic conversation with QPR, and came back full of it and thinking, yes, I've made my mind up. Notts were never going to get to that sort of contract for me. The conversation I'd had with Ray Harford, again, he's no longer with us, but he, a great footballing man, was alongside Kenny Dalglish when Blackburn won their Premier League title, and he just made me feel as though I wanted to go there and play for him, and it was something different. I would have had to have left home, left Leicester for the first time, and something that really, really appealed to me. And so then the period of agreeing to go to QPR, I was then sent to Sheffield United to go and speak to them. I think Derek Pavis had spoken to Tomo. Steve Thompson was at Sheffield United at the time. And he sat me down in his office there and says, right, this is what we're looking at. Do you want to come and join us? And I says, well, I'm going to have to go and think about it, really. And we pushed the boundaries and we looked at things, because I'm sure between them all, they'd thought that I'd signed a pre-contract with QPR. I hadn't signed it, but I'd agreed something. But I'd said to QPR, I want to finish the season. I want to win the league with Notts County, and I want to do it right, and finish what was a fantastic season. And I think probably finish off my period at Notts County, doing it the right way. And but that wasn't to be. So I Steve Thompson in the office, and my agent said, "Okay, we want this," and he went, "Jesus Christ," he says, "Dean Saunders don't even want that." He says, "We may as well give you the town hall or something like that," and that in Tomo's way. And so we left there thinking that that wasn't going to come back and be an improvement. So came back into the changing room and just carried on the season. And I didn't tell many people. I perhaps confided in Wardy, I'm not sure, but didn't tell anybody else, and felt it wasn't right to speak about it. So that's where the phone calls from Sam and Derek, people trying to get hold of me. We were building up to the deadline day, which used to be like the 3rd March, wasn't it? Thursday in March or something. And there was chat of me going somewhere, and Sam had then have me in the office and say, well, you've already agreed to go somewhere, so even if we send you somewhere else, that you're not going to go. And that was, I remember being at home, not wanting to answer the phone because they were ringing me at home, and there were mobile phones were just around at that time. I think I'd switched that off. I actually went and tried to make a phone call to my agent by walking around to the payphone, because if I was on the phone, that someone would know that I was on the phone and therefore was at home. So crazy times, really, but you look back at it and laugh about it now. But and that night, 11 o'clock, I think it was, 11, half 11, one night, Derek rings me and says, you're going to receive a phone call now. He says, don't answer any other phone call, just answer this next call and listen to what the man's got to say. And he put the phone down. I'm like, what's going on here now, mate? Is it KGB? Is it what's going on? And it was David Pleat, who was manager at Tottenham at the time and who was my manager at Leicester, and I got on really well with him at Leicester. I still speak to him now, actually, and he rang me and he said, look, we'd like to bring you to Tottenham.
So this is from the 4th tier.
Yeah.
For Notts County.
Yes.
Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah. On the blower. But
I knew that David also knew Derek very well as well. So I smelt a rat somewhere, and I'm like, okay, all right. Well, where would you want me to play? Because I'm playing in midfield at the moment. I wanted to find out where he thought of it. He said, "It's what I want you as come in as a left back, but backup." I can't remember who was left back at the time. I don't know. Tarico might have been at left back, Maurizio Tarico. And I said, okay, well, I'm 28, 29, and look, I want to be playing first team football. And look, Tottenham's a great club, and they weren't offering me the money that QPR were offering me, and it wasn't, it wasn't. We only spoke briefly about about the money, but it would be a 2-year contract. I was being offered a 3-year contract at QPR, and I turned around to Dave, and I felt as though I was strong enough and bold enough to say, look, are you being asked by Derek Pavis to do this, to help him out? And he said, well, we have had a conversation, and it would be helping him out, but you'd be coming into my squad. And I said, look, I've been offered a fantastic opportunity down at QPR to play. I said, I want to play. It's a step up for me to go into the Championship. And I don't want to sit on the bench. I don't want to play reserve team football. And I said, David, it's a massive decision, but I'm going to have to say no. And he says, you've made the right decision. So that told me there and then that it was to help a friend out, I think, and that it wasn't probably going to be the right move for me.
So is the ploy? How would it have gained Derek? Would Tottenham have paid more of a transfer fee, so Notts get more money from a transfer fee? You end up getting less wages.
Well, I think at the time it was QPR weren't going to buy me. They were going to just wait.
They were going to wait till the end of the season when
I was going to go there. For
Tottenham
nothing.
come in, pay a small transfer fee to take you now.
Yes, yeah. So I think as it worked out, I think 50 grand or 75 grand got mentioned that QPR ended up paying for me to get me early. So
they got you early. I think they sent you up and down from Chester or something, I remember, for your last game, you've told me. But then you had a real battle on to get your Championship medal, didn't you?
Well, it was funny because a lot of this stuff was being played out in the press as well. The Nottingham Evening Post were having a field day. Sam was having a field day releasing stuff to it. And I was being called a Judas and all sorts. And I actually went to Chester. Didn't know whether I was going to play or not, but I ended up playing centre half. I think Strods might have been injured, and myself and Rico were going to play at the back. I remember thinking, okay, is this my last game? Is it not? Nobody knows. Didn't know what was happening. Went out for the warm up, and we obviously took quite a few fans, to away games at that time because we were close to winning the league. So, we used to pack out the away end. Chester, we had the whole behind the goal and half of the stand opposite. And I remember jogging across the pitch, and I got booed by the Notts County fans. There was a group of 3 older women that used to travel everywhere. They were across the way, and when I made my way across there, they were shouting obscenities at me, and I thought, I've really upset somebody here. I don't feel as I've done anything wrong. We ran out the teams, and the teams were being announced, and I remember the opposition centre forward said to me, he says, "What have you done to upset these?" Because everyone was getting a big cheer, 2,000 Notts fans, and I got the biggest boo of the day, I think, just for naming my name in the team. So I said, I'm not sure, but anyway, it'll be a fun day. And within 2 minutes, I sold Wardy short with a back pass, and he had to come out and get me out the shit, really, because he came and cleared it away. But that would have been a good start, wouldn't it? But yeah, no, we that weekend actually we were then due to go up to, I don't know, somewhere near Wrexham or to stay in a nice place, play golf, bit of snooker.
Come on to the hole in one in a minute.
Bit of R&R.
Not yet. Anyway, go on. I was made to travel on the Monday morning up to Wrexham or wherever it was, somewhere in Cheshire, and I got there with all my stuff, expecting to be part of the group to go and play golf and to go and have a couple of beers at night and whatever. And Sam and Derek got me in the snooker room and said, "You're going to go to QPR this morning, so you may as well turn around, go down the M6 and make your way to QPR." And I went, "So you dragged me up here knowing that I was going to go to QPR, but you made me come all the way up here?" I said, "Well, yeah, they want you to go and have talks, but not there'll be too much talking because that's already been done, hasn't it?" And that was it. That was
that was how I left. So didn't get to win the championship, didn't get the celebrations, and didn't get the medal in the end. But I'd say I got that delivered when I went and met Wardy for Sunday lunch one day, I think.
Because you'd played enough games to be entitled to the medal, correct?
Yeah, I played nearly every game, I think. Up till then,
yeah.
Yep.
So did you go to Wardy's knowing you were going to get it? I mean, how much, was that something you really wanted? Because clearly the club didn't seem too forthcoming with sending you the medal straight away.
Yeah, it would have been my first medal. It would have been, and it's certainly something that you can look back on later in life and think, yeah, we won that, we won this, and yeah, a medal was something I wanted at that time and felt as though I deserved, and the club were holding it, and just hadn't bothered contacting me to give it to me. So I asked Wardy if we could meet up and he could present me with my medal.
Oh dear, the ins and outs of professional football, eh?
Yeah.
So off you go to QPR. So I suppose people listening to this and watching this right now think, hang on a minute, 2 or 3 years later, he's back again. You couldn't keep away.
It was, yeah. Again, I went to QPR and I had 3.5 fantastic years. Was at the end of my contract, and the club were in administration again. So again, there's something. It's certainly not my wages that were breaking the bank, but again, we failed to get back into the Premier League, but had 3 great years in the Championship, and Ian Holloway was in charge at that time, who I not long come into the club, and I loved the way he was working. I loved his. He was so gregarious in his way, and as he is now, as you expect, but probably even wackier back then because he was a fresh manager and coming to a new club which he loved. So I enjoyed the way that he went managed and wanted to stay. I offered to go on a lesser contract actually to stay, and it was said no. Everyone out of contract's got to go, and I did. And at that time, Jockey Scott had come in and spoken to me and said, "Will you come up and have a chat with us at Notts?" And I did. And again,
did you see Derek when you came back? Or did he
no, he'd gone by then. He'd gone by then. So no, Albert Scardino.
Right. So you were so. And you mentioned just a minute ago, so you're leaving QPR because they're in administration. Little could you have realised there's another administration round the corner. And I met Albert a couple of times. So presumably Albert, and I think they had Peter Starry, were giving you the global vision of Notts County, and they were handing some quite good contracts out, weren't they? Tony Hackworth and those sorts, and Darren Caskey. Yeah,
Caskey, yeah. I think he took it all. Actually, I'm not sure I got the one of the big contracts. No, I wouldn't put that on me. No.
So, did you have any reservations about coming back, or thought no, actually, new regime? I enjoyed my first time at the club. Nice homely club. Leicestershire is your family base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'd kept the home anyway in Leicester, and so moving back wouldn't have been a problem. And it was a club that I felt was, well, like you say, was sold to me that was going to pump money into the project, and wanted to be in the Championship within a couple of years, and everything that was said to me was backed up by 1 or 2 people that I was speaking to, try and do as much digging as possible, and again I think I signed on the same day as Caskey, Darren, and we, he'd just finished his negotiations, and I came in and we met and we had a look around together, and everything seemed great. So probably a totally different club to what I'd left.
And you start playing. How quickly did you realise, might not be going according to plan here?
I can't remember into that season. Was it halfway through that season? Was it after a few months? Just listening to Nico last week, that was he reminded me of 1 or 2 things. But yeah, we went on pre-season tour to Italy in the mountains. Fantastic place, like as described. Trained, played a couple of games. had to go into the river that was, rushing by the hotel to cool, have a cool down after training. It was spectacular, and there was no reason to believe that it would have, all gone pear-shaped, shall we say, a few months later, and it materialised that the money wasn't there, and that we'd been sold a bad story here, and I don't think the club really managed to recover from that for a few years.
Yeah, I think it had a long-reaching implications. You mentioned Nico, Kevin Nicholson, tell some great stories against himself as well. But of course, we've got him to thank, because you might not always have been winning out on the pitch, but on the golf course, there were some good golf bandits, apparently, according to Nico, Gary Hours, and of course, your good self. And so what's there was a regular golf club, yeah?
Would never be described as a bandit, I have to say. I don't remember picking up the money too often, that's for sure. But Nicky Fenton, it reminded me again how angry he is on a golf course, and say he could hit it 300 yards, but didn't know which way it was going, and if it did go off to the left or to the right, then you knew you were in trouble, because his other clubs were swinging, and he was.
Was that Nick Fenton or Gary Hours? Sorry,
Nicky Fenton. Nick Fenton.
Yeah.
Gaz was I think played off 8 or 9, very steady. Kasky played off 4, but he only used blades, never used a wood. So he'd knock his 2-iron up the fairway 250 yards and go. He was a bandit. It was. We used to go and play up at Cotgrave and had some good afternoons up there. But I think if it wasn't for times like that, being together as a group like that, then it would have been even worse than actually what it was. I mean, the club was going through a horrible period. I was part of that. I was PFA rep.
Oh, right, okay.
Previously, when I was there before, but also when I took over this time as well, I said, yeah, I'll do it, and because I had experience of it, and you were just sort of the go-between between the players and try and give them as much help as possible, I think, as and when they needed it. And it was, we had a good group of, say, lads in the change room, but we just, things were going on outside that were, we couldn't get a hold of, and it just made for some bad blood in and around the place, to be honest. I don't think that the communication between the administrators and the players and the manager, obviously Billy Dearden came in, having taken over from Gary Brazil on a couple of occasions, I think, and Billy was fantastic. Just tried to keep us together, tried to keep us doing the right things, but he was like pushing water up a hill. The lads would go out, and I remember Rico and his wife and his family, I think, outside of Woolworths collecting money for the club, and
Ian Richardson, yes.
Yeah, it's just things that you don't expect that you need to be doing, and obviously deferring your wages. You didn't have to do that, and I don't think it got reported at the time that players were actually deferring their wages or deferring to help out the club, and not knowing whether they would actually get that money back as well. So players made sacrifices as well, and I don't think the players got credit for that at the time.
We'll just delve into that in a moment, but I just want to square off the golf. Now, so according to Nico, so you quite modestly haven't mentioned it yet, but you got a hole in one, didn't you? In one of these rounds.
I did. It was I think it was the 10th, the short par 3. I think it was 110 yards or something. Not that I remember it that much.
Yeah, that was 7-9. No, it was a wedge, wouldn't it? For you, a wedge of 10 yards.
It was a wedge, but it was downhill, so you could see it all the way actually, and it took one bounce and it went in, and I did get the round in, yeah.
I was going to say, I think I was saying you didn't bother getting the drinks in, but I presume.
Well, he'd never know, because he didn't come back for a drink. He'd have to shoot off to his girlfriend or something. So that was. He couldn't hang around too long for a drink.
Yeah. Well, if ever I'll get a free plug in now. A good friend of mine, when you're in Northern Ireland, owns the Gelgorm Golf and Castle Country Club. Beautiful course. It's had the Northern Irish Open there.
Very nice.
Christopher Brook, who owns it, when Leicester had a pre-season tour in the early 2000s, I took all the lads over there, so I've kept in touch. So if ever you're struggling over there and the lads, he will look after you. And it's a very Gelgorm Castle, very good course.
Excellent.
Very good course.
I'll write it down now. That's
I'll send him this. He'll watch this podcast now. Will Christopher? So, on more serious times, administration. As PFA rep. So, was that something you felt more keenly because you were a bridge between players, PFA HQ, all the rest of it? You're still trying to play games. I think this ended up being one of the longest periods of any club that spent in administration. This wasn't 3-a-month job. This was a long haul, wasn't it?
I can't remember how long it actually went on for, but it did seem longer than normal period. A period that it should have been, the club should have been sold. It should have been sorted. The new owners come in and allowed to do their thing. But it did. It seemed to drag on. And again, I'm not going to tell an old story, but the shirts from the Chelsea game, all little things along the way added up to sort of tear us apart, really. Because the communication between me, the administrator, to go back to the lads, to tell them what's going on, knowing what's going to happen. We've all got mortgages. Can we have a Christmas that we used to or we'd like to have, and other people would just take for granted. We weren't sure whether it was going to be all done and dusted and sorted, and so that uncertainty certainly then takes it onto the pitch, and although you might think, okay, for 90 minutes you can forget about it, what's happened in the lead up to that week and the preparation takes its toll, I think.
But you did manage the Great Escape with that victory at Huddersfield with that spectacular run at the end of the season, didn't you?
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Nico does. Obviously, that goal he scored on the last.
I know. I really can't. I can't remember that. It was. When he was talking about it, I was thinking, I don't remember that game. So I'll have to have a look back, go on to Soccer Base, and see if I was actually involved in
11v11 with all your stats. So how did your second stint at Notts come to an end then? Clearly, it ended up being a very different experience to probably the one you thought you were signing up for, yeah?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I saw my contract out. Gary Mills had come in at that time. So, Millsy knew me as a player. I'd played with him at Leicester. I played with him in the dressing room at Notts. I think he knew me as a character. But I think he came in with the thoughts of, I'm going to clear out the old guard.
Yeah.
And at the time I'd have been 32, 33. He spoke to me about bringing younger legs into the team. Didn't feel as though I could have the impact, that he wanted, and was going to let me go. And I says, well, I think you're making a mistake, but look, I understand. You want to bring your own players in, and that's fair enough. And I suppose I was on after all the administrations, and there was going to be cutbacks in money. I don't know who was in charge when Gary took over, but I think contracts were being taken down a little bit, and obviously, they didn't even want to negotiate in any sort of contract with me. So, I wasn't offered anything, and that was me. That was me gone, and I suppose it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I went on and spent 6 years at Scunthorpe and played for 6 more years, and 3 of those were in the Championship. So, I kind of proved him wrong, which I enjoyed doing to people when they doubted me.
Yeah, because you like you just said, 32, you start, you kind of think maybe get one more contract after that, get it to 34, 35. I've done really well. You really had a tremendous end to your season at what was a great time for Scunthorpe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the best time that Scunthorpe's had as a club. I joined them that summer, and you know, it was again a rebuilding job with Brian Laws, who'd been there for a few years and come back, and he built the spine of the team, of which I was going to be central midfielder. He brought in Andy Crosby, who's now my under-21s manager at Northern Ireland, the centre half, Paul Musselwhite, the goalkeeper, and we had Peter Beagrie was on the left-hand side, still doing his stuff,
yeah,
his magic, and Steve Torpey down the middle. So we had a real spine of the team, which was strong. It was experienced, and we went from League Two into League One. We stayed in League One for a year, and then we got promotion under Nigel Adkins when Brian Laws left to go to Sheff Wednesday, and then came down, got relegated, and then got back up the following season via the playoffs. So 2 promotions to the Championship, and it was a great time, and I was playing till I was 38.
Which is testimony to you. So as your playing days are starting to come down, you're doing a bit of coaching. Is this when you're now starting to actively think, I would like to be in management? You know, this. You know, I'm not ready to quit the professional football bubble. I want to stay in it in some capacity.
Yeah, I think when you become one of the senior pros, you start working with the younger players, not knowing it. You know, you subconsciously you're thinking, okay, well, I'm one of the older players. I should be helping players within the team, and that came natural to me to be a talker anyway. And certainly the young players, when they came into a team, you know, I remember what it was like for me, you know, making my way as a youngster, and you need those senior pros to be backing of you and to guide you, and you know, I just felt that was my role, one of my roles, and to me, you know, I felt as though I enjoyed coaching. I hadn't done a great deal of it, and I just started doing my badges, and you know, by the time I came in and helped Nigel Adkins, myself and Andy Crosby were still playing, he took over as a physio, and
yeah.
he took the reins. He wanted 2 senior pros to be alongside him and help him. We didn't know how long it would be before, whether they would bring a new manager in or whether we just, you know, carried on until we're told otherwise. And it seemed to work. And you know, Nigel was obviously eventually given the job, and we became player coaches, which was, I have to say, was a tough gig, because you were in the change room in the morning, you were then in the coach's room, you were then going and taking training and trying to train as well, and it was difficult, but you know, it gave me a great insight into where I wanted to be, and that it was that period that told me that I want to coach when I'm finished. So didn't want to give up playing, but wanted to prepare myself and get myself ready for when that time came.
And so now you are an international manager. You went over to Sligo, didn't you? And I think we've mentioned before, Steve Cottrell, who's very popular among Notts fans, very popular for the job he's done. And we've just heard when we're doing this podcast, I think literally 2 days ago, Steve came out of hospital. And I think I certainly hadn't realised he'd been in hospital quite that long. You know, I think it was the best part of a month in the hospital. So we all wish Steve a very, very speedy recovery. But I think he put a word in for you with the manager's job at Sligo, yeah?
Yeah, and I didn't find this out until I was actually in the job at Sligo. And, you know, I'd had 7 months as Scunthorpe manager when Nigel went to Southampton. Just a little bit around that. I was expecting to go to Southampton with he and Andy, but the chairman couldn't agree, didn't want to take, you know, all of us in one, and I can't remember the Nicola Cortese, the Southampton chairman at the time, said no, Nigel could only bring one person, so he took Andy, and the chairman wanted me to take over as manager at Scunthorpe, and I had a decision to make. I wasn't ready. I knew that we'd probably get relegated. We weren't in the bottom 3 at the time, and the only time we dropped in was when we got beaten at home 3-0 to Preston. and I was sacked within an hour of that game finishing. So, I took the job on the proviso of I would be given the chance to bring the club back the following season and build my own team. And unfortunately, those promises were never met. So 11 months out of the game, and then I got a phone call from Sligo saying, would you come over and interview for a job? And I hadn't applied for it, didn't even know where it was. So had to do a bit of research before agreeing to it and say, yeah, okay, I'll come over. It was a full-time outfit in a part-time league, really. I would call it at best. But I found out that Steve, I didn't know Steve. I'd only spoken to him after the game when we played his Portsmouth team, and he felt that I'd set up, pretty strong against him, and we'd done okay against him, and he put my name forward after spending 15-20 minutes in the manager's room afterwards. So thanks to him, really, he helped me on my way as well.
You then became involved in the Northern Ireland setup, correct? Was it under 21s?
Yeah, after managing Motherwell in the Scottish Premier League.
I forgot Motherwell. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Having beaten Rangers in the playoff final for us to get relegated or for them to come up into the league. And it was a foregone conclusion that they would beat us in that two-legged playoff. And again, we put a spanner in the works, stop them coming up for that season. So we beat them, and 7 games into the new season, I was let go at Motherwell. So yeah. And then I went to Oldham under Steve Robinson as assistant manager again. And then after Oldham, a year at Oldham, I'd managed to get the job as under 21s manager at Northern Ireland. Yeah.
I guess what you were getting there, that period after going into management, was I guess really, a school of life as a manager, because we all know, League Managers Association will have all the statistics. The average tenure, the average span becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. You're often not in control of a lot of situations, and so you've bounced from there, to Ireland, to Scotland, back to England, and I suppose you try and pick up life's lessons from those scenarios, don't you?
Well, by that time, yeah, when given the chance to go to Sligo, I thought of it as yes, it's an adventure. It's something that I don't know what I'm going into. I don't know what kind of league it is. Had to learn very quickly, because as soon as I stepped foot on Irish soil, 2 days later, I was taking the team in the first game of the season. Pre-season had been done. The window was shut. I couldn't bring any more players in. So I was taking over a going concern, not knowing what I was going into. I know that Paul Cook had just left Sligo to go to Accrington, and having had a conversation with him, he told me it was a good club and told me about the characters within it, and away you go. And I ended up having 2.5 successful years, won the league in that first year. First time in 35 years, won the FAI Cup at the Aviva the following season, and the Setanta Cup the season after that, and then got sacked 6 weeks after winning the Setanta Cup. So it just goes to prove it doesn't matter how successful you are, if your face doesn't fit at the time, you're going to be out of work.
There was a bit of speculation, if I remember, and it's not surprising, because we here at Notts we have gone through so many managers. I think the stat when Neil Ardley managed his second anniversary, he was something like the first Notts manager to have done it since Sam Allardyce. Unbelievable! Because I think you were linked once or twice, I think, in our various managerial merry-go-round over the past decade or so.
I think my name was thrown in there a couple of times. I didn't have any conversations with anyone at the club. So it wasn't realistic, but it was all media speculation, I suppose. But I think at the time, and any time you're linked with a club, and a club that you know very well and has played a big part in your playing career, I think it was one that I was, if that phone call had come and I was asked to come and speak to them, I certainly would have done it. It's a club that I think shouldn't be in the position it's in now, and over the years of there was years that I wasn't there, obviously, that it's even more turmoil and ups and downs when Sven came in, and it just seems to be a club that has headlines written all over it. And at the moment, it's a quiet period, but they're in the National League, and it's a club that shouldn't be in the National League, but are there for a reason, and have to try and fight their way out. And hopefully this year, they can do that. They're in a good position to do that. I always follow the club and the results and where they are and what they're like as a club, because you never know. You may get that chance at some stage to manage them, and you want to know the history, and you want to know what's going on at the club. So
you've now got your feet under the table, Northern Ireland under 21s, and I think, according to my son's research, if he's got it right, you'd have had Pierce Bird in the Northern Ireland under 21s, wouldn't you?
I did bring Pierce into the squad. Yep, he was one that would have been an eligibility player. So
yeah.
He didn't grow up in Northern Ireland, but has got a grandparent, or he enjoyed the odd pint of Guinness, something like that, to link himself to the island. And brought Pierce in, and he played for me on a couple of occasions. I'm not sure where he is now, actually, but
he's down at Eastleigh.
Okay, all right. So he's a player that I think, if he can apply himself properly, then he could have a decent career in the game. But again, working with young players, working with those that aren't the finished article, was something that I was passionate about, and really enjoyed my 3 years with the under 21s, and we had some good success. When I was offered the job, the first question was, and Patrick Nelson was part of this process, why do you want this job? We don't win games of football at this level. And I said, well, I can't do any worse than anybody else then, can I? That's the perception of it. We were in the one of the lowest pots, seedings, to pick the groups from for the Euros. And we drew Spain, and we were the only team to beat Spain in that competition that year, and we beat them on Spanish soil, and they actually went on and won the trophy that year. So good memories. We won 6 out of the 10 games to just miss out on qualification for the finals, which would have been an unbelievable achievement from the group of players. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time as 21's manager.
You're going to get the big job. You get the big ticket, which clearly must be a huge sense of achievement for you, and in a way the hard work begins. And of course you've got a Notts County stalwart in your dugout, and Tommy Johnson. Yeah, so you'd have come across Tommy at Northern Ireland as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our paths have crossed since being 17 years of age. Him at Notts County, me at Leicester. He was the little skinny winger that used to go flying past our right back and either score or set up a goal, and there were some good battles. And
so you would remember each other from those days then, yeah?
Yes, yeah. And I would, we didn't know each other as such, but we sort of, you'd always sort of say hello, or
yeah.
And I can't remember where it was where you sort of get to know him a bit more. I'm not sure, but we Notts played Villa, and he came back. He'd come back, and he'd always, Tommy could say hello and make friends with anybody, can't he? You know what he's like. So, and then he ended up becoming a part of the car school in Scunthorpe, because he came and signed there for a year.
Yes.
So that's where I got to know him more, and we've kept in touch since. And he's actually turned me down twice for a job. As I keep reminding him, or he keeps reminding me, and so I said, you can't turn me down this third time. But he was already working for the Irish Football Association anyway. He does the coach education and plays his part there, and he was going to come on board as part of my setup to watch the opposition.
And as you mentioned, Patrick Nelson, former Notts County Chief Executive as well. So it's a little group of us there. So.
It's good to have a chat about familiar ground, and Notts County comes up every so often. So it's I think it's fantastic for the club, to have that history that they've played their part in getting people in certain positions.
And clearly you've already achieved some remarkable results, and I think we were all watching the penalty shootout, and I remember seeing you in the dugout, Tommy in the dugout, and that was one where clearly you'd got the script right, you'd done the prep. I think you brought on at least one of the penalty takers with seconds to go, two penalty takers,
because we were desperate. The ball wouldn't go out of play. We knew what we wanted to do. We had made certain substitutions, and we were allowed to make 5, so we knew that we'd got 2 substitutions left, and 2 of my best penalty takers were still on the bench. And it was a big decision. Do you go for it? Do you make the change, which then obviously disrupts the team for maybe only a couple of minutes? But you're having to make quick decisions like that, but ones that you've prepared for, and that if it does go to penalties, and with only a couple of minutes remaining, there's a good chance it was that you wanted your best penalty takers on there. So I actually took off one of the players that I put on as sub, so his face was a picture. And you look back at it and you think, yeah, they were big calls, and they are big calls to make, and you have to make big calls. And at times, they go for you, which it did on this occasion. And other times, it's not going to work out like that. But fortunately, we got the right result in Bosnia to get the final back at Windsor Park, and hopefully, one game away from the Euros. But unfortunately, we got beaten in extra time by Slovakia, and they went through. So that was the disappointment. I've had 8 games so far, a Nations League campaign which was used largely for experimentation, bringing young players through into the squad. Some of those from the under-21s, which was great. And it's a mini rebuilding job really, with the successes that Michael O'Neill had, and again, taking over from someone like Michael isn't going to be easy. And we need to sort of bring some younger blood into the squad, but just it has to be at the right time, and we can't force them players in there. They've got to be good enough for a start, and then they've got to earn their place on merit. So I'm looking forward to it. World Cup campaign begins next month. Nice easy one to start with. We're away to Italy, and we take on Roberto Mancini.
Yeah, it almost became Notts County manager. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. It doesn't surprise me, but no.
That is true. Sven tells me the story in the book, which obviously you contributed towards. Sven had earmarked Roberto Mancini to be manager when he came in as director of football. And he and Roberto was out of work, came over, met Sven, and Russell King, this, guy that, the con man, is now serving prison time in HMP Jersey at the minute.
Really?
Yeah, at the Dorchester.
I lived in Jersey for 3 years, so there's a link.
You're tax exile.
A bit tenure. No, I'm not a tax exile. No. I've got there's a bank account somewhere with £13 in it. I don't know. I've not been able to locate it. But Sven identified Mancini, and Roberto wanted to come, but Sven was starting to have second thoughts about whether the money was, and so he tells a great story for Sven with Roberto. Keeps ringing Sven up after the meeting at the door. Right, I'm ready to come, and Sven saying, "Just hang on. Really?
I'm not sure. Just wait a couple of weeks," because he had reservations. Yeah, there you go, eh? You didn't know that one, did you? Remind him of that one.
I will.
Remind him of that one. And if you see him, because I know at international level you don't always get a chat with the managers.
No.
He was at Leicester City. Yes. Roberto was.
Yeah.
When I was there, and he roomed. This is true. Remind him of this. He'll look at you very funny. He roomed with Robbie Savage.
Yeah.
And they used to have a fight. You room together. You got the bathroom in the hotels, the Hiltons and everything.
Yeah.
And there's one hairdryer, isn't there? The hooked up.
Yeah.
And of course, they're all fighting because Roberto had the long, bit silvery.
That's right.
Sav's got the peroxide. Yeah. And they're all fighting over who gets the hairdryer first to do the old hair.
I can imagine. Brilliant.
Remind him of that after you've won 3-0. It'll go down
okay.
well.
Okay. That'll be nice. I'll keep you to that. But
I mean, I think, it's a wonderful opportunity for you, isn't it? It's a wonderful opportunity,
It's one that I, as I say, I never envisaged being a manager, let alone being an international manager, preparing for a World Cup. It's, it's something I've worked towards, and you hope that you get given the chance. But certainly when I came in as under-21s manager, I didn't even see it as a link to get in the top job. And Michael was great for me in respect of, he had me in and around the first team squad when our fixtures didn't clash, and it enabled me to come in and be a part of the group, seamlessly, really, rather than being from outside, someone coming in from outside. And it's something I hope to build upon and be a success on. It's not going to be easy. Michael's taken the country to a great level, and just maintaining those levels will be a big challenge. But with players like Johnny Evans, Stephen Davis, Craig Cathcart, it's a great group of senior players, and let's say they've made my life coming into it a lot easier as well. And I lean on them as much as possible. I think it's something I've always done as a manager, that the group is it in its entirety, and we've all got decisions to make, but we've all got a say in it. And I like people to have their say, and I make the final decision, but it's an informed decision. Listen to people that I trust.
Yeah, I was always, because we handled and organised, my company, the sponsorship of Vauxhall when they did England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. So I would get to travel around with all the various teams. And Northern Ireland were always incredibly accommodating, very hospitable. So you would travel on with the group, go to the official dinners with Patrick and the Northern Irish FA, Jim Ross and the board. Always very, very, very good. And it was noticeable, a great camaraderie and spirit that Michael had engendered. And also, whereas other countries in the home nations would, I'm sure you would advocate this, but they will be going on private jets and those sorts of things, charter flights. With Northern Ireland, it was invariably, I can't remember one that wasn't, you would be on a scheduled plane. And you will be travelling back or travelling there, and you're all in, why shouldn't you be? But you're all in economy. And there's 2 aisles of 3, and so there's 24 seats. All the players, Michael O'Neill, everybody mucked in together, because obviously at the time, another Notts County connection was Roy Carroll, because Roy Carroll was in goal at that time. And but it did engender, I think. Clearly, you would prefer not to have the private jet, but it did engender a great camaraderie.
It is one of those things that I think the Northern Irish players, credit to them, are so down to earth. There's a mixture of, I've already mentioned, Premier League players, top players, mixing with players from lower leagues, and that's how it's been. The pool of players isn't so great that we can call upon 15 Premier League players. I'd love to have the problems of Gareth with England. But what it does do is there is a real camaraderie amongst the group, and when they do achieve great results and feats like getting to the Euros 2016, that's why they do so well, and they enjoy it together as a group, because they're overachieving, and there'll always be a country that's deemed overachieving if they pull off great results, and although it doesn't surprise me with the being in economy and so forth, everyone being together and just on a scheduled flight. Since taking over, we've had to have our own chartered flights because of COVID. So it's a little different in that respect. And I've not played in front of a fervent bouncing Windsor Park as well. So to experience that is something I'm looking forward to. And God forbid, it's this is out the way as quickly as possible, and we all play our part in that.
Windsor Park is rocking, I have to say. When I've been to those games, I think when they qualified for the Euros, I think it was Greece, and I think Cole Frampton was sat next to me, and 2 seats along was Rory McIlroy. So, not that you need any tips from Rory, do you, with the holding one at Cotgrave with the 110-yard wedge?
I'd love to bring him in the preparation for a World Cup finals, and because I know in the lead up to the Euros, Michael brought in Rory and Cole Frampton, and Snow Patrol came and played, and you know, I think to experience something like that would be superb, and you know, what better than to get to a World Cup for the first time since 1986 and do it this time round. So we've got Italy, Switzerland, Bulgaria and Lithuania in our group, and we kick off in March with a trip to Italy.
Well, look, we wish you all the best on the road to Qatar, and hopefully you can get to Qatar, and we, as in Notts County, can get back into the Football League. So that'd be a nice little double all round.
That'd be a good double, yeah. Yeah, it would, yeah.
Ian, known you for a long time. I used to remember getting tickets for Leicester games. Do you remember it? Not
yes,
because obviously don't want paying you very much. And I was
once
at
I've left, yeah.
It's a lot, you know. And Birch is still going strong. Alan Birch, you know.
He is, yes, yeah.
You've always struck me as a very, I was going to say educated man, but I guess in footballing points, a very sensible man. You know, very.
Some people would say I have my moments. Educated, yeah, one French O level, but I know I was probably a late developer in going to college and what have you. So no, I'll take that. Sensible. If someone wants to call me sensible, then that's fine. I can hide behind that one.
And a bit like when we had Alex Darwin, you must have played in just about every outfield position throughout your career, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. Not. There isn't one position that I haven't played apart from goalkeeper, and I never got to go in goal as a sub goalkeeper actually. So yeah, I've played everywhere else.
Yeah, and I'm delighted that sort of one of the good guys has gone on to have A, such a longevity of playing career, and B, now has a fantastic platform with a managerial career as well. So we wish you all the very, very best.
Thank you.
As Notts fans, we look out now, obviously, for Northern Ireland, because in the bench, in those dugouts, there's you and Tommy, you know, and in the posh seats, there's Patrick. So there's a good connection with us there.
Yeah.
So
we've brought Roy Carroll back in with the goalkeepers at the younger age level, 17s and 19s. So Roy has agreed to come in and work with them. So there's another link there.
Really? Oh, well, Roy's on our list. If you see him, and he gets this mad request from me somehow or other, tell him, you know, don't bother. No, because Roy's very popular with Notts fans.
I can imagine.
He did very well for us. He did very well for us, I have to say.
Well, he's made a comeback. He's playing in the Irish League again this year. He made his debut, I think, a couple of weeks ago for Dungannon Swifts, and he. I can't remember whether he kept a clean sheet or not, but he's back at the age of 43, and I think he's staking a claim to get into my squad. So we'll see.
43, that's great, and it's great you've got him in back on yours. That's a great appointment. It's a great appointment.
I like Roy, and I'm keen on bringing ex-players back into the fold to try and work with the younger players. And I think I think they're great role models and someone that the younger players can look up to. So who better than Roy Carroll? I think he's fantastic at what he does. Actually, I've seen him working with young goalkeepers, and he's got a good future.
Did you know? We'll finish on this. Small world, isn't it? Did you know the story about when Roy played internationally for Northern Ireland and flew straight back over the following morning? So he played Friday night, and then he played for Notts on Saturday afternoon. Did you know that one?
He's told me that actually. I'm sure he has. Because I've worked with him a couple of times, and yes, he's.
Yeah, you can blame me for that. You can blame me for that because Northern Ireland were in Romania.
Yeah.
The game was a Friday night. Romania got this new national stadium open, and Notts were at Coventry on the Saturday, and so I rang up Notts, Jim Rodwell, bless his cottons. And I said, "Oh, you can get Roy Carroll to play," and he said, "No, you can't. You can't." I said, "You can." He says, "Well," I said, "It's Friday night." He says, "Well, what? You can't get a flight?" I says, "Well, look, I'm on a flight because I was at the game." I said, "I'm on a flight Saturday morning, 6 o'clock. Gets into Heathrow, 7:30. I said, "You get up to Coventry from there." He says, "Really?" I said, so he checked it out and says, "Yeah, we'll try and do that." Spoke with Roy. Roy's up for it. And typical Notts. Notts then tried to hustle Northern Ireland. didn't want to pay for the extra flight. So Patrick saying, well, yeah, okay, we'll put him on an earlier flight. That's okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But, pay the £97 Ryanair special and not typical Rodwell. Oh, we don't want to pay that. Can't you just pay for it? Thankfully, not saw sense, right? And not paid for the flight. And of course, they kept all this quiet. And so I remember at 4 in the morning or whatever it was, in a coach back from the hotel to the Bucharest airport, bleary-eyed, on the plane, Roy, you can blame me for this. And he had his card, he drove up to Coventry, kept a clean sheet.
Very
Good story. Got a lot of coverage at the time, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me, Roy, actually. Just any chance to play a game.
Yeah, good lad. We will let you plan the downfall of Italy.
Thank you.
You can get on them screens and have a look round. We wish you every success. Thank you ever so much for taking the time out to take a trip down Meadow Lane. All these shirts that you wore.
I've enjoyed it. Yeah, it's nice memories. So let's say thanks for asking me and coming on, and say hopefully I can get down to a game at Meadow Lane soon.
We'd love to see you, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Thanks, Paul.